Lawyers of Reddit, what was your hold it moment where you knew you would win?
I had a client who was accused of taking a young woman's car and then crashing it/fleeing the scene. The girl testified at trial that she had given him the keys that night because she was drunk and would never, ever drink and drive. Apparently, she was not aware that I had requested and obtained a copy of her driving record, which showed she received a DUI a month after the incident. I still remember the look on her face when I handed her driving record to her and said, "Except for that one time you got caught a month later, right?" The look on the judge's face was equally memorable. I trapped a defendant pretty badly one time. He testified in a depot he had a green arrow for his left turn and that my client ran the red. Unfortunately for him, the additional turn lane arrow was installed 2 months after the wreck. Case settled for policy limits a week later. I'm not a lawyer, but I took my old landlord to court when I was in college. They stole my security deposit over bullshit. They claimed I trashed the place, not knowing that I took pictures and video when I moved in and out. Their evidence was a vase quality recording of going through a perfectly clean apartment in better condition than it was when I moved in. But then they opened up the top of the stove and found a single piece of elbow macaroni under it, holding it up triumphantly. That was the crux of their argument. The judge was not amused and I got all my money back plus my lawyer fees and the filing fee. She then fought against her own lawyer to avoid paying him. Asshole. Edit. Anytime you move into a place, take pictures, take video, make notes about any damage. When you move out, do the same thing along with noting any repairs you made. Pretty hard to argue against solid evidence. Protect yourself. It wasn't at trial, but during a deposition on a case where 2 former employees decided to start their own company in a very niche market, but decided to make their plans on company laptops they unsuccessfully tried to brick. One of the defendants was the one being deposed. She said she answered to a higher power than the company. When pressed on what that meant, she said herself. That got reused prominently at trial. Edit. Because multiple people have asked and finding a clarification in the replies might be annoying, there isn't anything illegal about wanting to leave one company and start your own. The problem was how they did it, which was trying to poach existing clients while still employed, which breached their fiduciary duty, particularly of loyalty. I believe we also went after them for intentional interference with contract, as they weren't trying to solicit new clients for their business, but rather trying to get existing ones to break their contracts with our client. Using the company laptop to try to do it just made it way easier to catch them when the company IT guy found all the emails. And for privacy reasons, I won't say what industry it was, but to the person who asked, no, it was not a high-end escort service. I've never had to deal with one of those. I did have to ask a witness once about a sugar daddy website once, though, so that was fun. I was reviewing the transcript of an interview with a child. The child made incriminating statements against my client. At one point, when discussing the allegations, the child used an odd word, but I didn't think much of it. A few days later, I was watching a video of the child interacting with their grandmother, who hates my client, from about a week before that interview. The grandmother used the exact same odd word in the exact context the child later used it. At that moment, it became clear that child had been coached. It was the first real aha moment of my career. I worked on a case involving defective processors. In discovery, we got emails from the defendant's engineers that had worked on the processors. They were in an Asian country, but the emails were in English because they were going to US executives. One of the more senior engineers basically laid out the exact defect we were suing over, explaining what the problem was and why it was their fault, and finishing with, "This is big problem. We ship crap to customer." Needless to say, we hit them over the head with that in mediation, and they settled shortly after. Not a lawyer, but I played one in small claims court. My lease had an exit clause that said if I fronted 2 months' rent, they would work to lease my place and return anything unused. I checked with the office ahead of time. They ensured me there was a waiting list, so I gave them the 2 months and moved. They never returned a dime. I talked to the new tenant and confirmed they moved in a week later. In court, the judge was commenting on how he didn't see anything explicitly saying they would return any unused rent, even though that intent was stated to me a few times. Dumbo from the leasing office piped in with, "Your Honor, in almost every case we can return some money, but in this case we didn't have a tenant in the 2 months after he left." So she gave the case back to me and I presented the affidavit from the new tenant confirming the move-in date. Judge awarded me double what they owed. Turns out leasing office Dumbos 1 and 2 thought they could lie to me and return my excess rent money to themselves. It was my 3rd month of practice. I was in family law at the time, representing mom in a petition for a restraining order against boyfriend/dad. At issue in the broader case was child visitation, custody, support, etc., but today's hearing was just on the RO. We had pretty good facts, but it was mostly based on testimony of the parties. My client was way more reputable as a witness, so I was feeling confident. 10 minutes before the hearing, my client shows up. I give her a last-minute prep on what to expect, and then she says, "I'm glad I'm going through with this. I can't deal with it anymore, and he's just getting worse." To top it off, he left me a drunken, ranting voicemail on Saturday. "You have your phone with you?" "Yes." We play the voicemail, and it's a full 2 minutes of ex-boyfriend screaming shit like, "I should have fucking killed you when we were together. You were always such a bitch. I hope you burn to death in a fire." I didn't have time to ask her why the fuck she hadn't said anything to me about the voicemail before the bailiff called our case. We sit. The judge asks if either side has additional evidence, and I ask for permission to play the voicemail. Ex-boyfriend, who didn't have an attorney, didn't object. So I played the whole nasty 2-minute rant in open court. Judge goes, "We're going to take a brief recess before I issue my ruling. If the parties want to meet and confer in the hall, they are welcome to." Boyfriend knew he was fucked. We settled the whole damn case then and there. My client got her wish list in terms of custody, supervised visitation, child support, plus the restraining order, to boot. I'm a trial lawyer. I have a ton of these. My favorite was probably a DUI where the cop was in a BWW with my client watching a fight. Like, the cop was standing at the bar in full uniform. Then when my client walked by him to leave, followed him out. Client was only actually going to his car to grab his phone charger because he was going home with the bartender. Like, he hadn't even closed his tab yet. Cop arrested him and charged him with DUI for opening his car door. Then fabricated this story for his report about how client got in car, turned it on, and began to pull out of the space to leave the parking lot. He also denied being inside the BWW, on the stand, under oath, to my face.
Surprise.
I talked to the bartender at BWW and got the security tape. It very clearly, like surprisingly good quality, "Don't try to steal from a BWW BTW," showed cops standing at the bar, watching my client walk out the front door, then follow him 30 seconds later. Parking lot cam also showed client barely touched the door handle before cops stopped him. Edit. Buffalo Wild Wings. I apologize, LOL. Edit 2. Since a lot of people are seeing this, I'll add, the cop underwent an internal review, where the board determined he hadn't done anything wrong. A few months ago, he murdered an unarmed man while on patrol. He also trains new cops now, and tells young college girls he pulls over to call him Tommy. Bit of a soapbox. Cops don't need a reason to lie about what you say, do, or didn't say/do. I read hundreds of police reports. None of them are 100% honest. Cops lie under oath all the time. This story is just fun because I got to prove him wrong and save my client from a conviction. If you're stopped by a cop for any reason, make sure you know your rights. Do not offer information. Do not consent to a search. Do not have lengthy contact without a lawyer present or asking if you're under arrest. Not a lawyer. Years ago, I had to do something at a strip mall in a bad part of town. Took me about 20 minutes, and then I found that my car had been towed. Ubered to the tow yard. Giant sign says, cash only. Had to call another Uber, drive to the ATM and back, and pay them $300 some bucks. Got a shitty handwritten receipt that, believe it or not, was itemized. Went home, Googled, found that they violated the law in 3 separate ways. Towed illegally, illegally refused to accept credit cards, and had multiple charges that the law called unreasonable, like dolly fees and load/unload fees. Took them to small claims court. The judge began by asking the tow yard owner about his relationship with the property owner and how the decision was made to tow my car. Oh, the slimy tow truck dude answered, "My cousin works there. If he says tow, I tow. It's 100% legal." The judge's eyebrows begin to rise. "But," the dude continued, "but what I detest the most, Your Honor, is this asshole claiming I don't take credit cards. I'm a businessman. I take credit cards all the time. He's a lowlife that does not have any credit cards. That's why he wanted to pay cash. I was having a hold it overload. And the judge saw me smiling and hopping in my seat and patting my manila folder of receipts. Do you actually not have any credit or debit cards? The judge asked me. I pulled out my wallet and showed him, and then I pulled out a time-stamped photo of the cash-only sign I took the day of, and another one I took the morning of the hearing. The guy mumbled something like, "Okay, you got me there," and then had nothing but, "Huh." I didn't know that when the judge asked him about the legality of each unreasonable itemized charge. Anyway, each violation pays double the total tow charge, and since there were 3, that's how I made $1,800 on a $300 investment. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you like the video, and lastly, don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.